Greetings. My name is Bridgette Howard James. I am a business and outreach consultant, and tonight I'd like to talk to you about community, inclusion, and the individual. Community. What comes to mind when you hear this word? A place where people live, work, and go to school. Community. Why is it important? It creates an effective way to disseminate ideas and information. Community. What does it represent? A group of unified individuals sharing a collective vision. Simply put, community is a place where people can connect, develop, and grow. We can all be a part of many different communities. Community may even be your tribe, that group of people who are fully invested in you. The strength of community is getting many different individuals together, engaged and working for a common goal. In our national landscape, where our differences are being used to deepen the divisions among us, ask yourself, how can we build on the strength of our differences to create a strong and inclusive community? The community is a key foundational component of our society. Its cohesive structure is dependent upon how well it represents and cares for the people. The spirit of the community and its vision are shaped by many subgroups. The community vision is born out of purpose. It defines what the community is striving to become. However, if the community's vision is confined to one specific ideal, it leaves room for its atmosphere of exclusion to develop. Three things that undermine community are limited vision, a narrow identity, and unacknowledged bias. A limited vision sends a silent message to all its members that they all should conform to one mindset. As a result, a narrow identity is formed based upon how its members should look, think, and act. Individuality is shunned, creating an atmosphere of where unacknowledged bias can thrive. When I first learned of the death of Trayvon Martin, I was heartsick. As a mother of 5 sons and 1 daughter, I knew the fear of this reality. Trayvon's story is not new. It is all too common an occurrence in the Black community. A fear realized. A young Black teen returns from the local convenience store wearing a hooded sweatshirt. A concerned citizen, a white man, follows the teen because he did not appear to belong to the neighborhood. The man pursues the teen, armed with a gun, convinced that he must stop him. A struggle ensues. The teen is shot and killed. 16-year-old Trayvon Martin paid the ultimate price. This outcome is the result of a narrow identity, limited vision, and racial bias. Those who are different become targets to hatred and violence. Why does inclusion matter? Communities that embrace inclusion create positive change in 3 areas: in its environment, among its people, and for its future. Inclusion fosters a supportive and respectful environment. It also embraces diversity of thought and of people. It creates an atmosphere where open and honest dialogue can occur. Yet, The Civil Rights Act of 1964 made inclusion possible. This act ended segregation in public places and made employment discrimination based upon race, color, sex, religion, and national origin illegal. This act established the protected class. Subsequent laws addressed issues such as voting rights, fair housing, and expanded the definition of protected class. Today, many groups benefit from this law. However, inclusion will only be effective when we as a community are willing to face the fundamental truth of racial discrimination, injustice, and inequality head on. Ask yourself, how can inclusion bring us together as a community if we are ignorant of the historical impact of racial prejudice on our society in modern times? Consider this: slavery, 271 years. Jim Crow segregation, 99 years. Mass incarceration, also known as the new Jim Crow, 64 years and counting. Consider the impact of civil rights on American history. For example, voting rights. The 15th and 19th Amendment, respectively, guarantee constitutional right of African American men and women to vote. On May 26, 1965, the Voting Rights Act, which prohibits the practice of discrimination against African American men and women, was signed into law. Today, we continue to tear down obstacles that would suppress any citizen's legal right to vote. Also, we continue to make strides to make obtaining state identification more accessible. Yet, in the 21st century, voter discrimination is still occurring. Today, it is known as voter suppression. Ask yourself, how will I recognize discriminatory practices that have a new face? For example, requiring Black voters to provide a birth certificate prior to obtaining a ballot to vote. Yes, this happened in 2017 in America. Who are you? This is a question that young adults ask to define who they are and to uncover their purpose. Adults ask the same question to determine their value in relation to where they're headed in this journey. The common denominator? This question is central to defining identity. Our identity is shaped by those around us. Our community of origin is where our values and beliefs are instilled. Also, our outlook is even affected or influenced by the local community's culture. I can remember being asked that question when I was 3 years old. My response, I am a Bridgette. I am Bridgette. I was proud to be different. I wore it as a badge of honor. As I got older, I realized an invisible war was being waged against the color of my skin. I was battle-weary, carrying the invisible weight of the negative connotations against the color of my skin had taken its toll. The only place I felt safe and accepted was in my own community. Yet, I held on to the teachings my father taught us. Be open. Be open to love. Be open to people. Be open to change. Perception is the lens in which we collect and analyze and record our observations. However, how can we identify attitudes and beliefs that are not inclusive? How can we challenge outdated information we grew up believing was right? First, lower your defenses. This will allow you to evaluate the information you accepted as fact without questioning its validity. Second, look within yourself. This will allow you to examine thoughts, feelings, and attitudes that keep you blind to unacknowledged bias. Lastly, shift your perspective. This will allow you to see how you respond when confronted by discrimination. Change is a process. Creating a culture of change requires that each individual make the choice to be inclusive. It is essential that you actively choose to make and keep making the decision to be willing and open to learning about people who are racially different. Each of us have a specific ingredient that will determine how well a community will thrive. When we fail to fulfill our individual purpose, it becomes difficult for the community to adapt and to change. When considering your own role and impact in the community, ask yourself, does my community represent the people effectively? Does my community leave room to represent a changing demographic? Is my community truly inclusive? To build on the strength of our differences to create a strong and inclusive community, here are a few recommendations. Redefine your personal vision. Make inclusion a part of your personal continuous improvement plan. Second, read about America's racial history by authors such as Ta-Nehisi Coates, whose book is titled Between the World and Me, and by author Michelle Alexander, whose work is titled The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Color Blindness. And lastly, contact local organizations such as the ACLU or the NAACP to find out about legal rights issues that undermine inclusion. Finally, I challenge you to add your voice to speak out against racial discrimination, injustice, and inequality. When you see someone like me, look beyond the color of my skin. If you don't, you may miss out on a treasure within. Thank you.